Sākam ministra Edgara Rinkēviča un Turcijas Eiropas lietu ministra galvenā sarunveža Eiropas Savienības jautājumā kopīgo preses konferenci. Kā jūs zināt, šodien Turcijas ministrs ir darba vizītē Latvijā, un viņam arī bija tikšanās ar Latvijas ārlietu ministru. Sākumā es došu vārdu nelielai Latvijas ārlietu ministram, un pēc tam Turcijas ārlietu.
Godātie kolēģi, esmu ļoti priecīgs būt kopā ar savu Turcijas kolēģi, Eiropas lietu ministru un galvenā sarunvežu. Čau. Es ceru, ka tas strādā. Tātad šodien mēs apspriedām vairākus jautājumus. Pirmais jautājums, protams, mūsu divpusējās attiecības. Man ir jāsaka, ka attiecības ziņā mūsu dialogs ar Turciju gan politiskā līmenī, gan ekonomiskā līmenī, kultūras sakaru līmenī ir tiešām ļoti labs. Man bija ļoti liels prieks atzīmēt, vismaz pēc tam ziņā, kas ir manā rīcībā, ka 2011. gada 2. ceturkšņa datos pret 2010. Gada 2. ceturkšņa Latvijas eksports uz Turciju ir augs par 365%. Ceru, ka tas nav tikai viens tāds gadījums, bet ka tas arī varētu būt nākotnē, kā laba tendence. Otra lieta, ko mēs apspriedām, bija, protams, Eiropas Savienības problemātika. Tātad es vēlreiz apliecināju Turcijas kolēģiem, ka Latvija aktīvi atbalsta Turcijas dalību Eiropas Savienībā sarunu procesu. Mēs arī atbalstām sarunu atsākšanu vairākās nodaļās ar Turcijas Republiku. Un neapšaubām apspriedām arī jautājumus, kas skar Turcijas un Eiropas Savienības dialogu. Trešais jautājums, ko mēs apspriedām, bija drošības problemātika. Mūsu sadarbība no Korejas mēs pateicos Turcijai par to ieguldījumu, kā ir veikusi gaisa telpas pārtulēšanā, Baltijas telpas pārtulēšanā. Apspriedām arī NATO samitu gaidāmā Čikāgā. Un arī cīņa pret terorismu, kur es vēlreiz apliecināju, ka Latvija stingri atbalsta Turcijas cīņu pret terorismu un principā cīņu pret terorismu kā tādu. Un mēs vēlreiz arī paudām to nostāju, ka viss, kas saistās ar terorismu, absolūti nav pieņemams, un arī pasītrējam to, kā PKK, kur tur šī teroristu organizācija ir Eiropas Savienības teroristu listē, un ka šajā konkrētajā darbībā arī Latvija turpinās aktīvi atbalstīt gan Eiropas Savienības, gan Turcijas, gan starptautiskās kopienas cīņu pret šo arī teroristu palīdzību. Un pats pēdējais, ko es gribētu teikt, mēs arī vienojāmies par to, ka turpināsim aktīvas divpusējās konsultācijas visos līmeņos ar Turcijas Republiku un valdību vadītājiem, ārlietu ministriem, Eiropas lietu ministriem, arī nozaru ministriem, lai no turpmāk aktīvāk veidot gan mūsu divpusējo, gan daudzpusējo sadarbību. Paldies!
Thank you, Minister. And now, Mr. Bagiša, the floor is yours for a few remarks.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank my good friend Edgar for his hospitality. It's always a pleasure to come back to this beautiful city. I had two messages to convey. One is to thank Latvian government and people for their support to Turkey's EU membership aspirations, and secondly, to ask for the continuation of those very cooperative support. I am very happy that we reiterated that there are no political problems between our two countries. Our bilateral trade is booming, as Edgar said, and we have summoned our two ambassadors to make sure it continues with the same growth rate, around 350% per year, and we will keep them liable for the continuation of this growth. But we also had a chance to talk about the future of Europe, Turkish-EU relations, the chapters on which we're working, the reform process, the positive agenda issue that we discussed in Brussels yesterday with Commissioner Füle and other commissioners. We, of course, naturally spoke about NATO, another very important international organization that brings us together. We spoke about the developments in the Middle East, in the Arab Spring, and we also mentioned that there's a great coincidence. In year 2015, when Turkey will assume the presidency of G20, Latvia will assume the presidency of European Union, and that will create a very important platform for our two countries to work together, and we will start planning for that co-chairmanship at the same time to prevent future economic crisis and to make sure that Turkey and Latvia lead the way for a more prosperous world. Once again, thank you, Edgar, for your friendship and for the great hospitality, the traditional Latvian hospitality to me and to my delegation. Thank you.
Ministra, tagad ir laiks dažiem jautājumiem.
Kas ir tās reformas, kuras Latvija varētu labāk nodot Turcijai Eiropas Savienības integrācijas procesā?
Es domāju, ka mums pat varētu nerunāt tik ļoti par kādu reformu nodošanu. Es domāju, ka mums vairāk jārunā par atbalstu Turcijai politiskā līmenī. Un pirmā kārtā neapšaubāmi mēs vēlētos redzēt to, lai sarunu process, kas ir jau sācies pirms vairākiem gadiem, un kurš dažādu problēmu dēļ nenotiek tik aktīvi, kā mēs vēlētos, lai mēs atsāktos ar pilnu spāru. Mēs gribētu redzēt, lai sāktos Eiropas Savienības un Turcijas sarunas par enerģētikas politiku. Mēs gribētu redzēt, lai vairākas lietas, par kurām jau ir sākušās sarunas, tiktu turpināts. Tas ir gan ekonomiskā plāksnē, gan arī, teiksim, harmonizējot arī citas jomas iespējas. Bet es tiešām domāju, ka šobrīd mēs nesam tajā situācijā, lai runātu par tādu reformu pieredzi. Es domāju, mēs vairāk runājam par šo te dialogu. Neapšaubām, ka ja būs kāda interese kādos konkrētos jautājumos no mūsu Turcijas kolēģu puses, tad mēs būsim gatavi sadarboties un strādāt pie šiem jautājumiem, bet pašlaik tas laikam nebūtu tas aktuālākais dienas kārtībā. Šobrīd svarīgi ir tomēr uzturēt nopietnu dialogu ar Eiropas Savienību un Turciju.
Well, as far as the reforms are concerned, the reforms are complying with the EU acquis, and that's what Turkey is doing. And I've always argued that we see the EU acquis as a dietitian's prescription. If you implement it, you become healthy. And the reason Turkey is committed to the reforms is because it's good for our citizens, because it helps us increase our living standards. We're not doing our reforms for European public opinion, we're doing our reforms for our own public, for our own citizens, and we will continue doing it. But in a relationship between a client and a dietitian, You don't see a dietitian insult the client. Usually dietitian motivates. Sometimes some member states unfortunately misinterpret this relationship and try to demotivate Turkey. Maybe our pace of reforms have caused some fears in some founding members of the EU. But thanks to countries like Latvia, who understand Turkey's potential to cooperate with the EU, who understand that Turkey is a key to solving Europe's challenges, we feel that we have more friends than opponents in this process, and we will thank Latvia for that support to our reforms, and as I mentioned, seek the cooperation of that support.
Hello, this is Egemen Bağış, Turkish Anatomy Agency. My question to Host Minister. You said you supporting Turkey's EU membership. How do you think Turkey can contribute the best to the EU? And especially when you follow the developments in North Africa and Middle East, do you wish Turkey were part of the EU? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we discussed this, as my colleague said, also developments in the Middle East, in North Africa. And to answer to your question, I would say that first of all, I think that we have to take into account that Turkey has always been a very important player in the region. I think that by admitting Turkey into the European Union, we are expanding also the security zone. Turkey has played very important and is playing very important role in the regions like Middle East, in Afghanistan, in North Africa. Secondly, when it comes to recent developments, and we discussed this issue, we feel that experience and advice of democratic state of Turkey can be transferred, and is already, as my colleague informed me, is already being transferred to nations of North Africa, who just got rid of dictatorship. I also want to stress that due to the geographic position, due to long traditions of democracy of Turkey, due to many aspects we have discussed, Turkey also plays a very important and will play a very important role in energy security issues. So I really don't see any argument why Turkey can't become, why it shouldn't become an EU member. I see many arguments why Turkey should become EU member. And also I want to remind that we had our own experience of joining both EU and NATO back in 1990s, beginning of 2000. I think that many people have forgotten that there have been a lot of skepticism within EU and NATO at that time about Baltic nations joining, and there have been many artificial arguments put forward why it can't be done. At the end of the day, if there is a certain political will on both sides, on EU side, on Turkish side, if there is certain momentum, then those almost difficult and almost obstacles that some people or some nations think cannot be overreached, that can actually at the end of the day be overcome. And I really believe that comes a day that we will welcome our Turkish friends into the European Union. Certainly, it's not going to be easy. It is already difficult, but that's why there are foreign ministers, diplomats, people who to, tad uzvērtēt.
Vai būtu jau kādas jautājumus?
Ainārs Lajēks no ziņaģentūras Lieta. Jautājums par ministriem. Jautājums, kā varētu notikt Turcijas iestāšanās Eiropas Savienībā un vai nevarētu prognozēt, ka iepriekš izteiktais vienots par 10 gadu garajām sarunām no 2005. Gada beigām varētu šis saruna laiks kāds pagarināts. Un kā Turcija tomēr nevarēs iestāties Eiropas Savienībā 2015. Gada beigās, kas būtu 10 gadu uzstāšanās posms.
The decision to start negotiations for full membership was made in 2004, and since 2005 we have opened 13 chapters. What we know from history is every country that has ever started their accession negotiations has at the end completed their negotiations. There are no exceptions, and Turkey will not be the first. By the time we complete our negotiations, Turkey will be different than today's Turkey, and Europe will be different than today's Europe. Just like Turkey is not Turkey of 1959 when we first applied. Today Turkey completes the negotiations, it will be a different Turkey. When we first applied back in 1959, our per capita income was $400. Today it's more than $11,000 and it's growing. We had 14 universities, now we have more than 200. Our annual tourism income was $9 million, now it's more than $30 billion. So, Turkey's need for Europe is diminishing, where Europe's need for Turkey is increasing, and we will come to an eye-to-eye level. And that's when that great rendezvous will take place. In international relations, there are not too much room for feelings or emotions, but for interests. And this is a very interesting platform where it is based on a win-win situation. There are a lot of benefits for Turkey to join EU, and there are a lot of benefits for EU to have Turkey in the club. The biggest obstacle between Turkey and EU is prejudices. Prejudices in Europe against Turkey, prejudices in Turkey against Europe, and we have to overcome these difficulties. That's why my good friend, Foreign Minister, said us politicians and diplomats have to work very hard to fight against ignorance and prejudice, and that's what we are trying to do. Eventually, common sense will prevail, and Turkey will become a member of the EU. The question is not a question of if, the question is a question of when. And the answer is when both sides are ready. And we're trying to prepare both sides for that great rendezvous.
Es teikšu pavisam tā īsi, man tas termiņš būtu tāds, jo ātrāk jālabāk.
Paldies, tad šīs pozitīvās frāzes un preses konferences.